Hello and welcome back to the Research Center at the History Center of Olmsted County. Once again, my name is Krista Lewis and I'm the archivist here. Today we'll continue to make historical connections while exploring more of the archives, but in honor of our new exhibit, The Onward March of Suffrage, we'll focus, with a few exceptions, on pioneering women. And unlike our steps to Kevin Bacon, our path today will take a few little detours. So let's get going. We'll start with Marion Sloane, who was a true pioneer. She came to Rochester in 1856 with her family when she was 10, and they lived in a log house that would become the site of St. Mary's Hospital. Now, this was the first hospital in Rochester and ostensibly the beginning of Mayo Clinic, and it would not have happened without Mother Alfred Mose of the Sisters of St. Francis, who first raised the idea of a hospital and convinced William Worrell Mayo to staff it. And here we have a book that talks about her life and that story. And here she is talking to Dr. William Mayo. So a few years after Marion arrived, her family hosted Clara Barton, who shortly thereafter, during the Civil War, would make a name for herself as a nurse. And she would also help families find where their missing loved ones were, including the Sloanes. And here we have a letter from her that reveals Marion's brother Dwight was mortally wounded in battle. Now, Barton is best known for being the founder of the American Red Cross, which she did in 1881, but in the late 1860s, while lecturing about her experiences during the Civil War, she met prominent suffragist Susan B. Anthony. In 1877, Anthony came to Rochester, where Marion Sloane saw her speak at Heaney Hall, which was located at what is now the corner of 2nd Street Southwest and Broadway. And that is now the site of this building, which is currently named the Rosa Parks Pavilion for famed civil rights pioneer Rosa Parks. Now, Sloane would go on to join the suffrage movement and was an active member of the Minnesota Women's Suffrage Association. And in 1920, the National American Women's Suffrage Association presented her with the certificate that placed her on their honor roll for her distinguished service. Now, of course, Marion Sloane wasn't the only local suffragist. Eliza Wilkes, in 1871, became a ordained minister and was the first female minister at the First Universalist Church in Rochester. And as part of her suffrage activities in 1894, she spoke at the second annual Women's Congress in San Francisco, and among other speakers there were Susan B. Anthony and Anna Shaw, who was the first woman to receive the Distinguished Service Medal, which she's wearing here in this picture. And she received her medal for her role at the Council of National Defense during World War I. Now, another recipient of the Distinguished Service Medal was Jacqueline Cochran, who received hers in 1945 for her role leading the Women Air Force service pilots. And she began flying in the 1930s, participated in numerous races and set speed records, and was even the first woman to break the sound barrier. And she found her way to Rochester in August of 1940, where she helped dedicate our new airport. Now, she wasn't the only woman, or Olmsted County, I should say, had its own pioneering woman of flight in Lottie Schermerhorn, who, when she was 18, became the starring attraction at Rochester's 4th of July celebration in 1922. Now, Lottie Schermerhorn was from Predmore, and for this 4th of July celebration, she performed a wing walking stunt and then parachuted back to the ground. As for Cochran, she was also involved in a program in the 1960s called Mercury 13, which tested women's ability to be astronauts. And a longtime friend of hers since the 1940s, a Dr. W. Randolph Lovelace, was also on this team. Now, he worked at the Mayo Clinic in the 1930s and 1940s, and during that time he teamed up with doctors Walter M. Boothby and Arthur H. Bulbullion to design an oxygen mask that aviators used during World War II, and Jacqueline Cochran was the first female pilot to use this mask. So follow me. Arthur H. Bulbullion built a house in Rochester in 1947 that is one of 3 that was designed by famed architect Frank Lloyd Wright. And from 1889 to 1909, Frank Lloyd Wright lived and worked in Oak Park, Illinois, which is also the hometown of one of television's pioneering women. As the first woman to produce the sitcom and one of the earliest to have creative control over a show, her 80-plus year television career is the longest in history. And to top it off, she has played two fictional Minnesotans. So you might have guessed the woman I'm referring to is none other than beloved Betty White. And for those of you who are curious, she is only 2 degrees from Kevin Bacon. So I hope you've enjoyed your virtual visit to the archives, and we hope to see you here in person.